Here's an uptime monitoring system built with Encore. Before we jump into the code, let's open up the local development dashboard to take a look at the Encore flow diagram representing the architecture of the system. You can see from the strong lines between the monitor service and the two other services that we're making API calls between them. In this video, we'll switch that out to more of an event-driven architecture to decouple these services from each other and make the system more reliable. So let's take a look at the code. All right, so what we have here is the site services code. And on the left, we have the source code for the add endpoint. And that gets called every time a new site gets added to the database. So what we want to do is we want to add a pub subtopic where every time a site gets added, a message gets published on that topic. And then the monitoring service can subscribe to messages on that topic and then immediately check whether that site is up or down. So let's go. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create a package level variable. Let's call it site added topic. And to do that, we're first going to import the encore.dev/pubsub package. The pubsub package is part of Encore's infrastructure SDK, and it makes it extremely easy to create a new pubsub topic. All we have to do is call pubsub.newTopic and store that in a package level variable. And we need to have the message type itself. So let's use the existing site type. Next, the pubsub topic needs a name. So let's call it site added. And finally, we need to specify some configuration. For pubsub topics, all we need to do is to specify the delivery guarantee. In this case, we specify the messages are delivered at least once. So now when I hit save, you can see that Encore immediately detects the change and recompiles the application. And on the right, the topic immediately shows up. Now it's time to start using it. With Encore, there's no need for additional configuration. The topic is ready to be used, and you can simply start calling publish on it right away. All that's left to do is to add an error check, and then we're done. We can now hit save, and Encore will detect the change, recompile your application, and the flow diagram updates to reflect that the site service is now publishing messages to this topic. And now let's update the monitoring service to subscribe to this topic and process messages that are coming from the site service. To do that, let's head over to the monitoring service. Exactly like we did before, let's start by importing the encore.dev/pubsub package. Then we'll create a new subscription. And like before, we'll create a package level variable. In this case, we don't need to give it a name because we don't need to reference it. The first argument is the pubsub topic itself. And here we reference the variable from the site service. Next, we need to give the subscription a name. Finally, all that's left is to provide a subscription config. This configuration can contain many things, but in this case, the only thing we care about is the handler. The handler is the function that gets called every time there's a new message on the subscription. So let's define it right away. In this case, let's look at what we already have. We have this check endpoint, which is an Encore API endpoint. This takes a site ID and looks up the site. But in our case, we already have a site. So in our case, we can use this check endpoint directly, which takes a context and the site object. That's the exact signature that the handler configuration field accepts on our subscription. So we can use that directly. And with that, we hit save, and Encore automatically updates the flow diagram on the right. And we now have a complete PubSub powered backend application. Let's try it out and see that everything works. Since we're now publishing a PubSub message every time a site gets added, we should expect that when I hit save, the site gets immediately checked, which is exactly what happens. So now all that's left to do is to commit our changes and push them. You can either push directly to Encore or you can push to GitHub. Encore comes with a built-in CI and CD system that automatically builds and tests your application. Once completed, Encore will move on to provisioning the necessary infrastructure based on the changes that have been made. In this case, this application had already been deployed, which means that the only changes needed are to provision the pub subtopic and subscription that we just added. Finally, Encore will deploy the new release to the environment in question. And the best of all is that everything works with your own cloud account. This means that you can get the best of both worlds. You get the incredible developer experience powered by Encore with the scalability and reliability that you're used to from your cloud provider of choice. So now that the application has been deployed, let's make sure that everything works in production. And it does. And so with that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.